Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's online workshop, How to Manage IAQ Risks with Cloud-Based Monitoring. I'm your host, Troy Raszka, and we had maybe close to 100 people, a little over 100 people sign up today, and I see there's about 25 of you in. Welcome. We'll just give it maybe one more minute as I see folks are still filtering into the room. As a little point of housekeeping, we do have a handout tray. If you look in your GoToWebinar interface over there, and in that handout tray is a copy of today's slide deck, as well as some informational documentation on the IAQ Guard remote monitoring platform, our laboratories testing chamber, and our building sciences division's building health check program, which is a more robust IAQ testing and evaluation program for buildings. So we'll just give it maybe another 30 seconds or so and let the room fill up, and we'll begin. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our IAQ Matters online workshop, How to Manage IAQ Risks with Cloud-Based Monitoring. I'm Troy Raszka, the Director of Marketing here at PureAir Control Services, and with me I have special guests, Nick Novy from our Building Sciences Division, and Dr. Rajiv Sahay, our Chief Scientific Officer and Director of Environmental Diagnostics Laboratory at PureAir Control Services. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, how are y'all? How's everyone doing?
All right, we're doing good. The room is filling up. Folks, it's going to be a fairly quick and straightforward presentation today. We're going to give you a high-level overview of what cloud-based or remote IAQ monitoring looks like, why you want to use a platform like this and what it monitors for, and then how you kind of use it to detect threats or potential issues in your building and get out in front of them. Also, how to do some reporting. Just a little general housekeeping. We do have a question tray, and you're welcome to answer questions throughout the presentation today. But just know that we reserve special time at the end to try to answer all of your questions. Also, at the end of the workshop will be a short 5-question survey just to get your bearings on your understanding of IAQ monitoring, potential needs you might have. So we just ask if you could please fill that survey out when the workshop is over. So let's dive in. So today we're going to be talking about the IAQ Guard 2 remote monitoring platform, but really most of this presentation is just an education on what these type of platforms do, how they operate, and maybe why this is a little different, or why PureAir Control Services involvement is different from a lot of other quote-unquote product-only companies. So we're going to look at that platform, and specifically we're going to look at the monitoring of particulates, carbon dioxide, relative humidity, and volatile organic compounds, including formaldehyde, as constituents for good building health, and why you need to look at those. We'll also look at verification and calibration. We are going to look at how this system connects to each other, the internet and the remote dashboard, which we will actually take a quick tour of. So it'll be more of a high level look at this type of monitoring platform as opposed to a deep dive tutorial. In the future, of course, we'll be bringing you more detailed observations and learning sessions on this very platform. So let's get started. So, why do you want to monitor your IAQ 24/7? As a building engineer or facility manager, which I know many of you are who are on today, but there are still a few of you that might be in procurement, you might be faculty members and not have a direct stake in facilities management. why do you want to keep an eye on this 24/7 as opposed to only when you have a problem? Well, these IAQ monitors or sensors are placed throughout your building. They're going to log data. They're going to send it to a cloud-based dashboard. And this whole system will help you stay in front of potential issues that if you're responding to them by the time people are complaining, or the health or the energy efficiency or the ventilation of your building is being affected, if you can get out in front of them, it's going to be a less costly, in some cases, remedial effort to take care of them, and you'll be proactive in managing the indoor environment for the well-being of your occupants. So what we're monitoring, or what we're looking at here, is temperature, relative humidity, CO2, various types of particulate matter, various sizes of particulate matter, total volatile organic compounds, and formaldehyde. And you're going to use this platform primarily to monitor for trends. So like anything, like the stock market, it's going to go up and down, but what you want to see is a pretty consistent line going up and down, right? You'll see spikes, which is normal, and we're going to get into some of the examples, but you're really monitoring for trends over time to see if there's a deficiency in a certain part of the occupied space that you need to really sort of deep dive and figure out what's going on before it turns into a problem. You can use this platform to control other air cleaning technologies. And so you can almost think of this particular platform, IAQ Guard 2.0, as a sort of in-room building automation system to control a lot of these devices that have cropped up through the COVID pandemic, such as air cleaning technology, air purifiers, upper air UV. You can control these now with this system, even if they're not in your larger engineered BAS. And of course, you can generate custom alerts and do all kinds of custom reporting based on the data that's being collected over time. So again, I have a couple special guests with me today. Nicholas Novy is part of our building sciences division and is a building scientist who has been deploying a lot of these online monitors and this IAQ Guard system. And of course, Dr. Rajiv Sahay, who is the director of Environmental Diagnostics Laboratory. So Nick, why don't we start with you here? So when we're talking about a monitoring system like this, why is the bioburden of particulates within the occupied space, why is that important to keep an eye on?
I mean, that's a great question, Troy. So like you mentioned earlier, the most important part about deploying these monitors is, one, building a baseline with your facility. So if we can get a baseline of what your facility is utilized for and, what types of indoor air quality goals you like to achieve, that way we can be out in front of any issues that might arise or notice things that might cause issues further down the line, such as particulates. I mean, particulates are, a wide range of aerosols that can, affect occupants' health in different ways. So we measure for 3 different sizes of particulates, everything, down to smoke particles in the PM 1.0 size, all the way up to particles like pollen, human hair, dust, things like that, that all play into your indoor air quality and your occupants' health. So particulates are a big one that we look out for and can utilize as building scientists, not only just to get baselines of what your building looks like on a day-to-day basis, but also during remediation services and things like that. We have a building remediations team that does duct cleaning and HVAC renovations, so we can utilize the system to first get a baseline of what's going on in your building, and then 2, be out in front of any problems that we might see arising or you've brought to the table in particular areas. And then also we can utilize it during our remediation services to make sure everything is staying in line, make sure we're not changing the indoor air quality significantly during our remediation and make sure that specific areas are being maintained, to provide healthy indoor air.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think also another good baseline check is to look at the effectiveness of your filtration or air cleaning devices throughout the pandemic. Many facilities have upgraded to higher efficiency filters, which is a good thing, of course. But if these filters are filling faster, or if, let's say, there's a deficiency of some sort within the air handler units themselves, they're not airtight, the cabinets are leaking, or the filter rack isn't tight, or the filter might buckle, there might be what's called bypass. And so this filter bypass can also bring particulates not only in to foul the coils, but some of these smaller particulates can actually get into the airstream, downstream and affect the occupied space. Of course, another thing that we look at with particles, right, is that many in-room air cleaning devices have been deployed, right, during the pandemic. So in-room HEPA filtration or multi-stage filters or bipolar ionization. And we can sort of check up on the efficacy of these devices in the room or in the HVAC zone that the monitor is placed in. So you would expect to have a lower particulate load in rooms with this new air purification technology. But if the particles remain unchanged or even start to increase, then that might indicate problems with the equipment, that the filters need to be changed. These kind of issues we're going to take a look at. And then, of course, Dr. Sahay, maybe you can comment on how respirable sized particles can affect the occupant well-being in a building when we start getting down below PM matter 2.5 or PM 1. Oh, did we lose Dr. Sahay? Or is he muted?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was in the mute form. So, well, nevertheless, this is a very important topic, and I try to give this understanding so that you know that why it is important to study all these matter which we are going to discuss throughout the presentation. One thing I want to emphasize here is a very good graphic representation to just sort of give you an idea about the size range and how valuable or important it is. As you can see with the help of this hair, that the point, particle, which is like a particulate matter, which is called as PM 1.0 is really a very, very fine particle, and it can make all the way to your lungs. And if it is in the lungs, then obviously you will have compromised lungs, and then the whole body physiology is going to be compromised based on how much you are inhaling or exhaling. And obviously the respiration help you to exchange the gas, and the good gas, which we call oxygen, is going to be very important for the healthy living or healthy dwelling. So here it is very important. If more of these particles in the environment, then more problem it is going to create. So of course, on the one side, we cannot get rid altogether these particles, but at the same time, these particles should not be going out of the control. Otherwise, there will be a lot of problem. That makes sense, Troy? And especially in case of human hair, this is a good graphic representation to give. So it make the point clear, Troy, that the smaller the particle, greater the chance you are creating for compromisation of your health. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And of course you can see that bacteria, Doc, it falls within maybe PM 2.5 or below. And so even things like aerosolized Legionella, if that's been aerosolized and in the air and you're breathing it, that can cause severe complications, all the way down to different viruses, soot particles like from wildfires, like out west. It can be brought into a building with increased outside air ventilation. And some of this particulate matter is very small and it can affect you in negative ways. The sensors that are in.
Point I want to add, try on that, the particle also used as a vehicle by the microbes. So even though the particle is living or non-living, it is one aspect. The other aspect that it provide vehicular load of lot of microbes and several other particle which is going to penetrate through your respiratory system, either upper respiratory or the lower respiratory area.
No, that's a great point, that these other microbes can actually use the particles to latch onto and travel throughout the occupied space, where you might be breathing them into your nasal cavities, upper respiratory or lower respiratory. That's a great point. What I was going to say is that our air quality monitors in the IAQ Guard 2.0 use advanced laser technology to take these readings as they pass air through the air quality monitor. So, but particulate matter is very important. Certainly, we've been learning as COVID-19 has been proven to be a bioaerosol that's traveling through the airstream within a building, as well as other types of viruses, and like Doc was alluding to, allergens, pollens, things like this that can get irritable for the human respiratory system. Another thing that we look at that's very important, and we've covered this in past workshops, is CO2 as a contaminant or of concern, or as ASHRAE is now calling it, a design compound, because we look at CO2 in various ways to help understand the ventilation in a building. And as we know, even up to and including today with the new White House recommendations that are being outlined for indoor air quality, ventilation is still playing a very big role in keeping buildings healthy. And so ventilation helps dilute the buildup of CO2 within a building. And then there's some controversy to this, and I think both of my guests today understand this from a building sciences perspective, but CO2 might be considered as a proxy for ventilation in some circumstances. Not always, but because you can't see it, if you can measure it, right, through an IAQ monitoring platform, you can see when a space is occupied by people, because you'll see the trend go up for CO2, and then you can see when a building's not occupied. If CO2 goes up and stays up even after people leave the building, then in some cases that might indicate that some of the equipment is not working, or the building isn't being flushed properly or as it should be designed to. So what you can do is sort of use this type of monitoring platform to confirm that your dilution or your building flushing protocols that you've put into place is actually working, or doing it in the amount of time that is needed to have it be acceptable. And so, again, I don't feel like we need to deep dive into this, but I do feel like having your eyes on CO2 24/7 and having it being able to be continually reported on is a good thing to monitor. Do you have anything to add, fellas?
I mean, absolutely, Troy. That's, just one of the great benefits of the IAQ Guard platform is that it can be utilized, however you see fit for your facility. Whether that's, like we mentioned earlier, developing a baseline for when occupants are entering specific areas of your building, or, if that's being used to tackle bigger problems at hand, such as, hey, you've got an outside air problem where you're not getting enough fresh air coming into your building, your CO2 rates are going to go up, especially as you have occupants entering the facility. Or, maybe you want to utilize it in another form, such as, if you were a gym, or say you were a nursery and you wanted to make sure that your CO2 levels, were in a particular range for, the optimal use of your building. It can be catered, to however you would like it to, whether that's solving problems or setting up your facility for success.
No, those are great points. And by nursery, I think you mean like a greenhouse.
Exactly. Yes.
Growing organic vegetables and tomatoes and something where you actually might want more CO2 or be able to keep an eye on it, as opposed to a nursery where maybe you don't, want too much CO2 built up to put the babies to sleep, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
In either case, it would be good to monitor. So I think that's great. I think another important constituent to look at within a building, and really, temperature is providing comfort. The HVAC system is designed to generally take humidity out of the air. And in some environments, there's actual humidifiers that help humidify the air when the climate outside is dry. And temperature certainly is important, but we really look at this relative humidity, and we want to keep an eye on the baseline of this humidity, because if it's too dry and inside of the building, then the particulate matter that we were talking about, dust, things like this, can start to be kicked up, travel further, and really affect occupants in a certain way. If it's too humid or too damp in a building, then we start to talk about all kinds of problems with microbial growth. Isn't that right, Dr. Sahay?
That's a very good point, Troy, because most of the microbial world work with the moisture. So moisture, in other words, is the surrogate to find out that what are the probability of getting the microbe flourish in that environment. And especially people say that the moisture is the reason for mold. So if you have a moisture content certainly above 60 to 80%, then you are more vulnerable than otherwise to get some mold growth going. So it is very important, and these kind of data and valuable or significant data can be on your fingertip if you are utilizing these kind of monitoring device that can give you a very early indication of any incoming problem.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that with these recommendations back in 2020 and 2021 to bring more and more outside air in, you run the risk in certain climates around the country of bringing in more humidity. And so if your equipment wasn't designed to take that humidity out, if the volume of the outside air is increased, so your equipment's not designed with desiccant wheels to help take the humidity down, you could be causing other issues down into the occupied space by bringing this additional humidity in. I think another thing to look at with relative humidity is if inline equipment, Nick, and maybe you've seen this doing some of the HVAC hygiene assessments out in the field, but if inline equipment like reheat coils, VAV terminal boxes become fouled or obstructed, then the airflow is decreased to those certain HVAC zones. And we've had customers where they've had duct cleaning performed by a substandard company, and they blew all of this debris into these reheat coils, and now the airflow is obstructed, and the humidity within the occupiable spaces dramatically rose and very quickly rose and stayed at a very high level, and it caused all kinds of mold issues in the occupied space. So relative humidity can be a good indicator if airflow or ventilation in a certain area is obstructed for some reason. It can be a good harbinger of something to take a look at deeper if you start to see that trending up for a certain period of time. And then, of course, the other constituent, and we've kind of combined them here, that we look at continually is what's called total volatile organic compounds, or TVOC, and then formaldehyde, HCHO, would be the nomenclature, chemical nomenclature for that. But when we start to look at the buildup of these kind of chemicals, and one thing, and Nick and I were talking about this earlier, these sensors, right? They're going to take aggregate scores over time of these various parameters that we're looking at here, these constituents, but they're not going to tell you exactly what constituent it is. So in the case of particles, it'll tell you that your PM loads of 10, 2.5, 1.0 are acceptable, they're high, right? But they're not going to tell you what kinds of particles they are, right? And then the same case is going to go with the volatile organic compounds. It's going to be an aggregate of the total types of chemicals that might be in a room, which could be anything from toluene or benzene to other types of chemicals that are off-gassing from paint, furniture, cleaners. If you're having any kind of construction or renovation, right? It could be from actual office supplies or office equipment like photocopy machines. So it's not going to tell you exactly what it is. It's going to calculate the total levels and then give you a number. Now, in the case of formaldehyde, the IAQ Guard 2.0 platform actually has a sensor specifically for formaldehyde. So we can sort of take a look at formaldehyde levels and then the total count of other VOCs. Is there anything that you want to elaborate on, Nick or Dr. Sahay?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's a great tool, one, to develop your indoor air quality baseline, but two, make sure after the fact that certain things aren't causing it to go out of whack, such as building renovations, painting, new furniture being brought in, new flooring being redone. You can as a facilities manager be assured that making changes to your facility isn't going to ultimately compromise your indoor air quality throughout your entire building. Which is a great way to just utilize the system to not only make sure things are, in line, but also make sure that, conditions are brought back to a baseline after certain things are done, after you've renovated certain areas. You're bringing in a lot of contaminants, drywall, paints, sealants of that nature. All these things can, compromise human health as they're, carcinogens. So we want to make sure that if you're having something done like this, you can keep a really close eye on it in a particular way, around the clock monitoring, and then after the fact, make sure that you return to a baseline normal indoor air quality, and you're not, continuing to affect your occupancy's health.
That's great. We'll be talking about some examples when we start walking you through the actual interface of the IAQ Guard 2.0 platform. So I think one differentiator that we've been involved with, and if you followed our workshops here over the years and through the pandemic, understand that this IAQ monitoring platform is one of 6 pillars of good building health, or part of our healthy building program that we've developed actually even before the pandemic started. And so when we start to take a look at developing equipment, hardware and software platforms like this, just know that we're looking under the hood. We have the best outcomes for our customers in mind, because we truly value our customers and partner with them. We become part of your team, really, when we start to come in and develop a healthy building program for you. So just know that this platform, and we've looked at many different platforms like this over the years, is backed by decades of science, of building sciences. And so we kind of developed these 2 questions. If you're on here thinking about this platform or other platforms to use inside of your facilities, we sort of came up with these 2 questions that you might want to ask as you're looking into this and doing your research. And the first one, which I really want Dr. Sahay to talk about a little bit, is, was this product designed to accurately track building health? Or is it just going to be a quick snapshot aggregate? Or is it really designed to be a tool to track and utilize for your good building health in your building? And so Doc, why don't you just take us quickly through what Environmental Diagnostics Laboratory, in conjunction with our building sciences team, has done to date and is continuing to do to evaluate the efficacy of this platform.
Well, very good. I know that we do not have a lot of time, but I can give you a sneak peek that like why it is important and why we were going after this. You will find a lot of situation when the evaluators are or the manufacturer or seller of these kind of products are very product centric. Because I give a very common example that like indoor air quality, consider is an elephant, right? So elephant has different part like a trunk, tail, the legs, etc. But what happens if somebody gets the trunk or somebody get the tail start claiming that they have the elephant, right? And that quite frankly is not the case, because one thing I want to make sure that everybody in the audience understand, that indoor air quality is not like a particular, not a very one region for that. I mean, at this point, we know for sure that it is a cumulative effect of various, like, the factor, and those factors, like, built in, and every factor has its ways, and that kind of influence the indoor air quality. So being the business, like, almost like 4 decades, like in the indoor environment quality, that we have find over the time that this is not just like, measuring XYZ, length versus breadth or height versus weight. It's not like that. It is like, as I said, that is a cumulative effect. Why is that? Because the microbe is not going to sit ideal, because that is life. So life is keep growing from, like, the birth to the senescence in that stage, because somebody is going to get born, and then obviously somebody is going to get dead. So likewise, the microorganisms are also having a life cycle. So during that life cycle, many of the microorganism is going to give you a various kind of, like, output. It may be in terms of like volatile organic compound, it may be in terms of toxin, it may be in terms of as simple as that, like, particles, like, the whole sum of the microbe is going to float in the environment. So these kind of tools is going to indicate that what kind of fluctuation you are experiencing. Based on that, you will start focusing to go after the reason. So just like, being a cancer, an aspirin tablet is not going to take away the cancer. Maybe it give you a relief for a while, just like, not experiencing the pain and things like that. Likewise, these kind of monitors are going to give you a very valuable data, and it depends upon the evaluator that how you are going to utilize the data and how you are going to back up those data in the total evaluation, so that you can have a clear-cut picture of an elephant, not like, claiming the elephant when you get like a trunk or the leg or the other part of the elephant. So being said that, that was in our mind. So what we did, we first start thinking that, okay, so these are the monitoring device. So first of all, we need to make sure that the device which it claims it does. So we have designed the evaluation testing, and what we call efficacy testing, that how effective it is, how good it is doing the monitoring or giving you the data. So we have had opportunity to set several of these kind of device, not only IAQ Guard 2.01, but definitely this stand out the crowd because it has the comparison with an standardized device is very close, and so that we know that, like, remotely sitting somewhere, like, even 7 ocean across, you can find out like what is going on in a particular type of building or in a particular kind of scenario. So what we did, we have here, fortunately you can see in this slide that we have an environmental chamber. And by the way, that is not like, the shoebox kind of experiment, what I call jokingly, because it is a full-fledged, the environmental office kind of scenario, maybe 10 by 10 room kind of scenario. Then we have put this kind of, monitoring device or sensing device, and we have collected the data as per the manufacturer recommendation, that how they wanted us to do the trial, so that we can compare exactly in the real world scenario that what we are going to get in the real world. And then we also, like, monitor the data, we collect the data, and we compare the data with the NIST traceable equipment, and then we find out that these are the valuable data. Based on that, couple of our expertise in the 4-decade long expertise with the various study, various kind of parameter, we make sure that those parameters are also kind of like, mixed with that to find out a total result. So that's what we did. The second thing we did, that, like, we have created a different kind of simulation by, introducing more particle, introducing volatile organic compound, introducing like formaldehyde, and then we just, like, start studying the capability of these kind of sensing device, that how capable or how, like, important or how good this kind of equipment is performing in order to get the real data, so that we can supply this data to the building evaluator, scientist, or the homeowner to make sure that the required parameter is being solved with this, and the mystery of the indoor air quality, we can go another step closer to solve that mystery. That makes sense, Troy?
It does, and I think that a couple points here is that obviously PureAir Control Services doesn't have a factory, and we're not manufacturing these products, but we're providing very high level quality assurance, quality control for this line of monitors and this platform. And we have bilateral communications with the manufacturer because we're always striving to improve this product. And so I think it's very important to hit on that maybe a lot of companies or manufacturers, I should say, are one and done. They're going to put their product out, and that's that until they decide that they're going to make a whole new product or something. But we're continually keeping an eye on what is happening with the system. And not only that, but we're deploying many hundreds of these around college campuses, hospitals, government offices, manufacturing plants. And so we ourselves are looking at this data over many of these sensors and creating aggregates and keeping an eye on making sure that they're performing as designed. I think the second question here that we want to ask ourselves when we're looking at a platform like this, right? And we do want to spend a little bit of time on this, but is how do you interpret the data that's being sent through this kind of platform to improve your building health? So a lot of companies, and there's a lot of great products out there, I mean, that work really well. But at the end of the day, right, it's a dashboard with information over time. So it might make some recommendations, but if you start to see a trend and this trend is not looking good, because now occupant health is going to be affected, maybe mechanical equipment is going to be affected. Not many of these other monitoring platforms are actually going to tell you what to do about it. But with using IAQ Guard 2.0, again, you have decades of building sciences backing this platform up. So much so that there's actually a feature inside of the dashboard that allows you to connect directly with us for consultation if you start to see trends that are going to take building health into the negative, right? So, Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about how we come alongside our customer in those situations to help steer them in the right direction to getting back to a good baseline?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the IAQ Guard platform, is just like any, it's just like another tool in our toolbox. But we can utilize it in, a number of different ways. One of the big benefits of this tool is, the 24/7 remote ability to keep an eye on things. So we can keep an eye on things around the clock. We can make recommendations and changes as need be. But not only do we have this valuable tool in our toolbox, we also back it up with a team of scientists, industrial hygienists, biologists, building scientists like myself, who actually can take the data that these devices are giving readings from and do something with that, interpret it, and make more informed decisions about what's going on, what we're actually seeing, and what that means in terms of your building health, and what we would suggest doing to achieve goals in terms of building health, and if you're having issues, or just to stay ahead of issues before things arise and become more problematic. Then we have to go in and create, it's the equivalent of a doctor using a stethoscope versus having to cut you open and do surgery on you. We're able to make calculated decisions before the fact based off these readings that were provided, and using our team of experts who are versed in using this equipment as just another valuable tool in our toolbox to make these calculated decisions and provide recommendations and assessment.
Yeah, again, most technical support on products or platforms like this is going to be connectivity issues, things like that, which certainly we can address. but we take customer support and service to a whole nother level, because we can start to help develop a plan early on when we're seeing these trends. Whereas in a world without this type of 24/7 monitoring capability, you would rely on customer, or I should say occupant complaints, right? Within a building, you know something's going on, and then you would have to deploy a large team to come out and investigate the building. Well, now this gives us a head start, like Nick was saying, because we can start to look at the archival data, we can look at what the baseline was, what this negative trend is, and then start to develop a plan to deploy to actually figure out what's going on and remediate it. So I think that the human element here is not to be underestimated, and certainly the expertise of what PureAir Control Services team offers is second to none in this industry. These are the overall specifications that we took a look at and verified or confirmed. Of course, you can find these on our website. You can find these in the handouts. I feel like we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, because now we want to dig in and actually talk about how this system works. So Nick, you've hooked up quite a few of these things. Why don't you just quickly, take us through the components and how they talk to each other and how they're hooked up?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways. Just like I said, earlier, we can cater the system towards your facility and, set it up as you, the client, would prefer. So that means, one, we have the ability to get online on your existing network and pair devices, or two, we have the ability to stay completely offline from your facility using wireless cellular routers. So basically, what we have is a gateway device. This is what the gateway looks like. We have wireless and wired versions. So meaning we can plug right into your existing routers, or we can set them up in a strategic displacement throughout your building to set up monitors throughout your building. So basically, once the gateway devices are paired to your network, then we come in and we pair air quality monitors. This is the IAQ Guard 2.0 right here. Basically, you have the ability to plug these in via USB, like a cell phone charging wall outlet, or you can actually hardwire these into your facility, which is what a lot of our clients actually are opting to do, because it looks nice on the wall. You can oftentimes they want them next to thermostats or areas where they just want to keep a general kind of unbiased baseline of what's going on in the air. So we have the ability to hook up units permanently within buildings. We have the ability to come in, set them up, make recommendations, develop baselines, monitor remediation services, and can ultimately just tailor it towards whatever the client's needs are, whatever the size facility they're operating in, or whether it's, like you mentioned earlier, a college campus or a hospital that has many buildings throughout their area. We can set all of these buildings up on one dashboard, continuously monitor aggregates of buildings. You can look at specific buildings, or you can look at specific locations within your building to see, give you a better idea of what exactly is going on where in your facility.
Yeah, and we're gonna, and just a few more slides, we're gonna take a look at just that. Nick, I have a question for you here, and this is for my edification. No one's asking it, but I'm sure folks are thinking about it. But it isn't one of these air quality monitors per gateway, right? Like the gateway is able to get many of these air quality monitors and actually other devices like air purification units, upper air UV, and other kinds of equipment that are Wi-Fi enabled to talk to one another, right? It's not one gateway for one device.
Absolutely. So we at PureAir have a number here at our headquarters, have a number of devices and purifiers all linked up to one gateway. So they do support the option to link multiple devices, kind of like in a mesh network of multiple air quality monitors can be placed on one gateway device, or multiple purifiers, pretty much as you will. We also have the ability to kind of chain link gateways to reach out further distances from the original location And you can ultimately have like a chain of devices all communicating back to one gateway, which really makes it pretty versatile. And, you know, however you would like to utilize the system, there's, you know, plenty of different ways you can lay out your facility.
Yeah, again, I think it's just important to note, because we have various customers, some of them that are going to handle all of this themselves as facility managers in conjunction with their IT or IS departments. And then there's other customers that let us manage this as a managed service for them, and we come alongside and truly partner with them. And it's like a subscription service, right? So you have the hardware element that is relatively inexpensive, and then you have the service side of it, like a subscription, like a cell phone service or a cable TV subscription, that's going to keep the data flowing back up to your dashboard interface, where you're going to be able to run reports and set thresholds and set alerts and things like this. So you know, you have to think of it maybe in those terms. But a lot of folks don't want it going through their local area network. They want to have a standalone cellular network that's just dedicated to this IAQ Guard platform, and we can do it either way. We can work directly with your IT department, or we can, you know, get you set up on your own dedicated subscription through a cellular service. Another thing that I think folks ask just preemptively is these are not battery operated. So if Wi-Fi goes down, if the power goes down, the system will go down with it, as far as you'll see a gap in reporting or data collection. And again, we can talk about this when we look at the dashboard here in a minute, but generally speaking, you can set this up. It's taking readings every minute, every 5 minutes. How does that work, Nick?
It's taking readings continuously. So the dashboard, the lag time is about less than 30 seconds from what the actual device is recording. You know, if you breathed on this device, you're going to see CO2 rates go up, you know, within 30 seconds on your dashboard. So the lag time is pretty minuscule. It transmits data pretty quickly. And also, just to kind of piggyback on what you just mentioned, yes, you know, if we are tapped into your network, to your power grid, you have, you know, the power goes out, your network goes down, the devices will go offline. However, as soon as it comes back online, your power comes back on, your network comes on, the devices automatically know how to pair back up with your system. So you won't see any, you know, you won't have to repair devices and things like that if you do have a power outage. Also, we do have, you know, the ability to be on, like Troy said, a cellular network. So if you lost network availability, our system's still going to stay online as long as your power is working. That's another really cool feature. You know, a lot of our clients, they don't have the best network, or they have a facility where they don't even have a network installed. They want us to come in. We set up routers that communicate with cell towers, and we can stay totally independent of, you know, confidential, you know, network information. You know, if you don't want us to be on your network, we won't be on your network. So that's a really, you know, cool benefit of the platform.
Now, one thing that the IAQ Guard 2.0 does to take it sort of to the next level here is that it offers smart monitoring and control. So not only do you just hook up the air quality monitors to this Internet of Things dashboard, but now you can hook up Wi-Fi enabled air purification devices, upper air UV. You can even hook up certain kinds of HVAC equipment or exhaust fans that have this Wi-Fi protocol to create what's called a swarm AI, or swarm artificial intelligence. So once you're in the back end of the dashboard, you can start to use these trends that IAQ Guard air quality monitors are spotting to turn on air purification devices within the occupied space, or to turn on and off exhaust fans. So it's really cool. This is just the beginning of how these types of platforms are going to work. And right now, I mean, they're working really well, as we're going to show you here in a second. Now, another thing that we often get asked about this is, you know, how many of these air quality monitors do we need in a building? And as with all things, and Dr. Sahay alluded to this as well earlier, is that indoor air quality needs to be taken as a whole. And there are no two buildings that are exactly the same. There's different types of buildings, there's different ages of buildings, there's different mechanical systems in buildings. Buildings have different uses and different occupancy rates. So really, as Dr. Sahay said, there's many different factors that contribute to indoor air quality. And as Nick had just mentioned too, it all kind of boils down to how you want to use this type of platform within your facilities. And so really, if you look at the well building standard, or a lot of typical like HVAC or design engineering standards, is you'd want to put one about every 3,500 square feet, or by the HVAC zones that are within your building, because obviously you have a thermostat in these areas. It's taking its own sort of readings to be able to turn the system on and off. And so that's typically a good spot. Also, because if you wanted to hardwire the air quality monitors, you could pull power from the same power that is feeding the thermostats. So that's also really great. Other customers have used these because they know that there's been an area of concern, manufacturing plants, things like this, where they have their occupants are complaining. So they might use these for a specific type of investigation and not 24/7 monitoring of the baseline at all times. So it really just depends on what your needs are in your facility. And again, that's why you would come to a company like PureAir Control Services that has this kind of experience, because we can help guide you to make an informed decision about what you really need, based on what type of facility that you're operating. So another thing that is often asked is, how easy is this thing to set up? And Nick, you can take us through this, because again, you've done countless numbers of these deployments. So why don't you just sort of take us in, to actually setting one of these things up, and then we'll get into the dashboard and take a look behind the scenes, or under the hood, if you will.
Sure, yeah. So these devices, they're relatively easy to set up. If anyone's ever set up, a Bluetooth smart device like, Philips light bulb, or, speaker system at your house, you're probably capable of setting up the indoor air quality monitors. Once you establish what type of network you want to use, whether that's, cellular router or tapping into your own network, you basically will pair a gateway device using a Toolbox app. I don't know if you can easily see the Toolbox app on my phone. It looks like it's too bright right now, but you can see it here on the screen on the presentation. And basically, you'll pair a device with your network using your password information for that network. Once the gateway's online, it's as simple as adding monitors, the air quality monitors. You plug them in, they're ready to be set up onto the network. They find the device, and from there you can name it to wherever location you're putting it at, so that way you have a good idea of where the readings are coming from within your facility. Then you can also, take Wi-Fi enabled air purifying devices and add those to those same locations. So you know that, hey, if this monitor, is in a conference room and we've got a conference at, 2 p.m., I'm gonna have a lot of occupants in that room, or you notice that your CO2 rates are up, you can schedule air purifiers to turn on. You can turn them on and off yourself if you prefer, hey, during the weekends, I don't really, care to run my purifiers that much. Or, maybe you want to run them before occupants get into your buildings to make sure, your indoor air quality is the best it can be. So they're really easy to set up once you get the gateway device connected to the network. The other devices are basically just turn them on, and the Toolbox app will just locate them for you.
Yeah, and basically what you were talking about is that once they're all paired, then you can go in to your actual IAQ Guard dashboard and start to look at these locations within buildings where these devices are set, and start to create schedules and do all kinds of things. So we're going to take a look right now at the actual back end, or get under the hood of the IAQ Guard 2.0. So when you first log into your dashboard, you'll be brought to your building section. And as we were talking about with schools, like a college campus that has many different buildings that they might want to set up with an array of these types of air quality monitors and air purifiers and such, you're going to see all of the buildings that you have your devices in if you're a facility manager looking at your buildings that you're managing. So we're looking at today just the PureAir controls setups that we have because, you know, obviously a lot of our customers, we operate under NDA and there's some confidentiality there. So we're not going to show you live customers today, but you see all of your buildings. You can determine this aggregate score, this graph, by day, week, or month. So this is a quick shot to just look at all of your buildings in one scroll to see how they're doing. And then you can click into one of your buildings. But here you can see, you can set up the address. This is our Philadelphia office. This is our headquarters in Clearwater. Dr. Sahay's test chamber over here, and even his laboratory. And then it shows the number of locations, and those would be the air quality monitors, and then the number of them that are good. So right now we're reading good on across all of our monitors, or acceptable. And then if you want, you can click in and it goes automatically to the dashboard. And so what it's compiling right now across the top is an aggregate score of all of these monitors that are listed below. And so now you can start to see the different parameters or factors that we're looking at, and they're set up like a gauge. So if they start to go into a poor category or a moderate category, they change to that color, just like a stoplight, red, amber, green. The dashboard is configurable where you can expand and collapse these gauges and get into the actual readings. And what's really cool here is you can sort of hover over each one of these constituents, and it just gives you a very quick snapshot definition of what would be acceptable temperature or humidity. So even though these TVOCs are up, because quite a few of these monitors are looking up, you're still seeing that basically anything less than 1,000 parts per billion of TVOC is acceptable. So Nick, why don't you maybe talk about how we have this particular install set up as far as our thresholds for acceptability go?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, as you can see, when Troy hovers over, you know, the aggregate parameters, you get just a general guideline, which we base off industry standards like EPA, ASHRAE, FIT, WELL. All, you know, we've as a team come up with a good guideline for what our parameters should read as. However, the parameters are still, you know, adjustable depending on your clients, you know, depending on your needs. So we right now currently have ours set up in a very conservative type approach, meaning, you know, if our TVOCs are saying moderate, it doesn't mean you're actually in the bad range. It just means that they're up a little bit more than you would expect them to be, and they're still well within the, you know, industry standard guideline as to what, you know, would be considered a good baseline. So, you know, we can cater it towards specific needs, such as, you know, a gym might have higher CO2 rates logically because there's people working out and respirating inside the facility than, say, a hospital clean room does. Not to say that your indoor air quality is poor, it's just being utilized in a different manner. So that's one of the cool ways we can make adjustments based on your clientele's needs. And we can also, you know, as Troy kind of scrolls down the dashboard here, you'll see over the course of a day at what the monitors are recording. So all of these different colored lines here are different monitors within the facility, and they're measuring, you know, as you can see along the same baselines until you spot one that kind of goes out of the normal trend. That's kind of what we look for in terms of, hey, you know, what's going on with this particular area and this particular reading, is how can we, you know, use this to make calculated decisions about what's going on with your facility. And Troy, if you want to maybe just go back to the buildings tab real quick, we can look at the overall approach again, and you'll notice that you know, we have different guards linked up in each of our locations of our buildings. But if you once the dashboard populates here, you'll notice that the ED lab test chamber, we have one good reading and two not good readings. Now that makes a whole lot of sense because, you know, we are constantly running experiments in this test chamber. We have one source of outside air monitor that we can keep an eye on the outside air, use it as a baseline during our experiments. And then the monitors themselves will already, based off the algorithms and the data that's being provided by them, show you that, hey, something's out of line here, something's not good. That's an indication that you probably want to take a deeper dive into actually what's going on with this facility in particular. It's a pretty clear-cut case right there that, during our experiments that we're running, things are not good, which, makes sense. And then you'll notice here we currently have some blank ones here. Those are being they're basically ready to set up in our new wing as soon as we get power running to our building. We're having some renovations done at the moment. So you can kind of take the approach as to, I want to be ahead of my facility in terms of monitoring my indoor air quality. We can get them online just as easily as flip the button, they're ready to go, and everything's pretty much set up in place for you. So we can ultimately go into a facility, set up with guards, ready to just plug in, link to the network, and boom, your dashboard's ready to go. Just setting you up, pre-site visitation. And so what Troy's looking at here is an actual floor plan of our facility. This is just our headquarters, so it doesn't show every guard that we have online, but you'll notice the pink dots are the gateways that we have throughout the building, and then the green dots are the actual air quality monitors. Those will change to the yellow or amber and red colors based off the readings. Troy, if you hover over one of those readings, you can see that you can click on it and it'll provide you the actual readings from that location within the building. You can make sure your devices are online, and you can also utilize different purifiers within the room. So as Troy's clicking on that purifier within the conference room, you can see that it's turned on right now. You have the ability to go and change the speed of it, change the automation of it, turn it on, turn it off, however you please. It gives you just kind of, especially as a facilities manager, a bird's eye view as to where your monitors are within your facility, and a really great way to just look at how you've distributed them throughout your building, which
right.
is beneficial.
And you can see that these are the ones that are grayed out because the power is not active to those right now. And we just had an instance with one of our customers where we noticed, we were checking up, I think Nick, you were checking up in the morning, and noticed that all of their monitors went gray, which prompted a call to that facility. And what was their response when you called out of concern?
I've seen it multiple times. It normally just has to do with network. They'll be like, hey, yeah, we have an IT guy in working on our network right now. He's doing some stuff, had to unplug a few things here and there. Right when they get the internet back on, boom, the dashboard pops right back up. So yeah, sometimes clients are even surprised that we're, paying such close attention to their dashboard, in terms of, we notice when, as soon as they're offline, we can get alerts, they can get alerts via text or email, and we can, diagnose what's going on with the facility.
So the Autopilot, Nick, this is actually where you really start to tinker with things. Is that correct? Where you're going to go in and set your thresholds for what is good, moderate, poor, very poor, or hazardous. You can enable the actual individual sensors, or what's going to be shown, I guess, on your dashboard, right? So in other words, some of this dashboard, it starts to get unwieldy if you have many monitors set up. And if you only wanted to look at a few things, you could enable it right here, right? Or disable it so that your dashboard is maybe less cluttered if you're only concerned about a parameter. But here, as you can go in and would click edit, and you can set your own values, again, based on your building type, your building use, how old the building is, what kind of systems are in it. So no two buildings are the same, and you can certainly customize these settings based on your need.
Absolutely, it's just one of the great features.
So anytime one of these thresholds go above where it would be acceptable, or where it would become a concern, then you can go ahead and set up an alert phone number or an alert email and add it to the list, and then it would send that alert. And then if you were to look at the Autopilot logs, you would be able to see any kind of alerts that were sent, or if a device was triggered or what have you. So it's a really neat feature. It allows you a pretty high level of customization based on your building's needs. And then this is where you would go ahead and run schedules. Nick, you had alluded to that a little bit, as if you wanted to schedule air purifiers to automatically come on and off.
Mm-hmm.
The start time is what you would want to name it, daily cleanse in this case. We do a lot of experimentation because this is sort of our sandbox, is our own office, to really sort of test this thing out. And at any given time, we might change this or do different things with it. Another feature, and obviously a big one for our facility management partners, is they want the ability to run reports, to be able to run custom reports, to be able to actually look and log and output these reports to share with other stakeholders, or if they're trying to meet compliance standards for UL or for LEED or WELL, they're able to generate these reports on a regular basis and send them to the folks that would have a stake in making sure that they're compliant with what they signed up for. And so you can see there's different types of reports: your indoor air quality, your maintenance reports based on your air purification devices, your autopilot setting reports, and then if you needed to schedule a consultation with us to help you out. So let's take a look at this IAQ report as it's generating for the week of 3/22 to date. And it'll take a second as it's crunching the data here. And so up here is where you would select the locations, which are the actual air quality monitors. You would select the dimensions, right, or the factors that you want to report on. So it's just as easy as if you were setting up tags. There's a pull down list to select. Same here. And then the report would run. It automatically runs, but if you wanted to select a new date range, you could run that custom report. You could make a schedule for your reports, view your schedules here. But I think the cool thing to look at here is not only the PMs, but the VOCs. So you see that we're going along pretty steadily all week, and then bam, at 7 a.m. on the 25th, we're seeing some pretty high level spikes, and then again on the 28th. Curiously enough, at 7. What's going on here, Nick?
Right, so what you're seeing right now here, Troy, is every Monday and Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. we have topical cleaning throughout our building. We actually have, one of our staff members go throughout the facility and topically clean basically every room, and the monitors are actually picking up on this cleansing pretty accurately. You can see, right at 7 a.m. they start, and pretty soon after, the rates go back down to a normal level. And one way you can utilize this in the field is we've seen we've seen janitorial crews come through facilities, and we know exactly when they're using their vacuums, because oftentimes it kicks up a lot of the particulate matter in the room. Those monitors will pick up on those devices or on the parameters that they're reading, and it can give you just a really good idea of actually what's going on in your building. Is there some work being done? Are there people in the room? What is being done to your facility? So it's really cool just to see how in our building it populates, basically like clockwork. Every, twice a week we do our topical cleaning, and the monitors show right there that, that's being done, and just can visually see it throughout the facility.
Yeah, just really, really neat stuff. Obviously, you can export these reports as a PDF or a CSV, a spreadsheet. It's extremely helpful. Again, you can take a look at your maintenance devices. So any kind of air purifiers. We have set our own alert status that on April 2nd that these filters need to be replaced. So when that comes up, that it'll send the alert. If it hasn't already been done, it'll remind the person. And then you can reset it. You can order parts directly from here. So if you need filters, you can set it up and order parts. This is looking at the Autopilot report that shows that these air purifiers were triggered on a certain time. And curiously enough, it was at the same time that our janitorial crew was going around and cleaning because it probably detected the spike in VOCs. So it correlates right with those spikes that we were just looking at on that report. And then of course, you're able to, do a consultation report, like there's a set of parameters in here that will give you maybe possible solutions or what the root causes might be that you might want to check out. And then if you needed to, you could schedule a consultation about any of this. So it pretty neat stuff. You can deep dive into those and edit them. Of course, this is the admin panel. So this is where your device management happens. So after you pair the devices, if you want to double check that they're working, you can come in here and take a look at it. So if we look at the air purifier showroom, all right, that's schedule C, air purifier showroom, because this is where we have a lot of the air purifiers, right? So you would come here and you would see there's one monitor in the room. And then when you click on the remediation tab, you can start to see the different air purifiers that are in the room. So if you wanted to turn one on or off manually, or change speeds or modes, you can do it all right within here. If the device has a UV function that is allowable to be turned on or off separately, you can control it there. If it has a bipolar setting, you can turn it on and off right there. You can lock the setting, or you can just turn it off. It's alerting me that there's auto remediation in progress. Do I want to cancel the auto remediation? So no, I'm not going to do that. But if that wasn't going on, I would switch it off and you would see the status go to off. And then this is going to look for a gateway in that particular location, and there's no gateway here. And as you saw on the
those are all operating off of our one gateway within building sciences. Right. So it's pretty cool. You can have multiple locations, multiple devices, all banking off of one gateway. In that bottom right corner, that pink dot is basically what the entire room outside of those 3 gray units is using as the gateway for our facility.
Yep. So as you can see, it's a very powerful platform that can be customized to your building's needs. It functions across a variety of locations, so you can hook up multiple devices to one gateway. It gives you a very quick snapshot into what's going on in all of your buildings, right down to the individual locations where these monitors are placed. And it allows you to reach out to us for quick consultation, or to be able to spot trends and to be able to stay in front of them before they turn into very costly remediation projects. So again, a very powerful tool to put into your arsenal. And I know we went over time a little bit. Of course, we got started a little bit late. And I do see some questions pouring in right now, Nick and Doc, so we'll take a look at those. But again, just a little bit about us. We were founded in 1984, and we're now part of the Trimco Construction Products Group, WTI, under RPM International. We have 3 specialized divisions, so not only do we figure this stuff out from a building sciences perspective and an environmental lab perspective, but we also go out and remediate problems with the HVAC system and within the occupiable space. We have a product company that helps develop these types of products and bring them to market, as well as do-it-yourself testing kits, air purifiers, and that's our building health check division. So all told, we have over 800 million square feet of experience. We've done over 15,000 individual facilities, and these are 15,000 buildings that we've performed studies in. So it's not just a handful of buildings. We've seen just about every building imaginable and studied the environmental conditions of them. And these are healthcare, education, commercial facilities, government facilities, and of course, all of our technicians in the various fields of expertise continue with their certifications. They keep them up to date. They're up to date with continuing education and training. We just did 2 days of training of all of our field technicians, over 50 individuals last week. So we keep up with this stuff. And this is our contact information if you need to get a hold of us directly. And let's get to some questions. here. We have a question, and this is an interesting question which I've not heard before, but Paul Haas is asking, is the data subjected to regression analysis? And I'm not sure what he sort of says. He goes on to say, we found the decay that can be matched to a standard regression cited by ASHRAE and the ASTM in determining rates of ventilation with the exception of a steady state of conditions. What does the software interpolate from small perturbations in the time series graphs that we were looking at?
So I think he's kind of alluding to what you mentioned earlier, Troy, is spotting long-term trends. Is where's the trend of the data from the monitors leading you? Is it an upward trend in humidity in your building? Is it an upward trend in particulate matters? How are we spotting outliers in our facilities, such as someone walking by a monitor and breathing on it and sending your CO2 rate up, versus what are we seeing in the long run? How are we seeing it overnight? How are we seeing on weekends when there's not people in the facility? I think that kind of touches on maybe the more statistical side of things. And I don't know if you have anything to contribute to this, Doc, but we like to utilize it as what long term things are being displayed by the graphs, and how can we utilize that as a better baseline for your facility?
Yeah, in the laboratory prospect, we have done the data analysis by analyzing the simulation versus the regular, but we haven't done any kind of regression study because the data set is not like that long. But yes, we have analyzed statistically the data between the simulated and the regular, or what we call untreated condition.
Yeah, thank you. I think that makes sense. That Dr. Sahay is talking about when he's simulating a certain condition, a spike in TVOCs, where he's inoculating the test chamber with a particular design compound. So we're on purpose spiking something and looking at a very maybe quick rate of decay or how that's happening. But again, that might only be happening in one day's time, not over the course of a week or a full shift of people coming in and out of the test chamber, let's say, or a true real world scenario.
Yeah, and then our data is also one more thing I want to emphasize, that it is being done under the ISO 17025 standard. So this laboratory is compliant with that standard. So we take our data seriously, and it is like, the data integrity and the authentication is pre-verified.
And one thing too, Troy, that we kind of brushed over on the report writing aspect is you can extrapolate all of the data being read by the monitors into an Excel spreadsheet. It gives you an exact time, location of each node, and what exactly the parameter it's measuring. So you really have the ability to take the raw data and put it into any type of graph or display that you choose to utilize the pure raw numbers.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue, because we have another question, and this is definitely outside my purview or scope of knowledge, but they're asking if artificial intelligence or AI such as SkySpark was used to treat the data, would this be able to be modeled using Python scripting?
I'm unsure about that. I think that's probably a good follow-up question for us to ask our developers more so. Just because I'm not really an expert on programming, and I know Python gets pretty detailed in terms of what you can do with the data.
Yeah, I don't have the direct answer to this question. I do know that at this present time, this particular platform, without a lot of custom work on the back end, will not just directly hook into a larger engineered BAS system. But as Nick had just alluded to, and as we talked about in the reporting area of the IAQ Guard 2 platform, is that you could just take a look at one parameter, take the timeline of that over whatever date that you want, and just output that data as raw data to a spreadsheet. And then from there, like Nick, you just said, then you could basically take that data and probably reinterpret it based on your knowledge or need, just with the raw data that was output. But again, that's archival data. That's not real-time data. That's the report. So
Absolutely. That's just like we utilize in building sciences. It's another tool in our toolbox that we can, manipulate and make calculated decisions based off the numbers that we're actually seeing.
Great. Well, listen, most of you have hung in here with us for this full hour. Now that we're just wrapping up the Q&A, and we certainly want to thank you for coming on board today on this IAQ Matters workshop. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to email or call us directly. Again, there's a survey as you exit the GoToWebinar platform today. We encourage you to take, because we actually allow you to ask additional questions there, or even offer up topics for future workshops, which we're always happy for that kind of feedback, because ultimately we want to work with you to help share the knowledge of indoor air quality and what it is we do. So on behalf of myself and my guests today, Nicholas Novy and Dr. Rajiv Sahay, we'd just like to thank you for coming out, and stay tuned for our next IAQ Matters workshop coming up next month. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.